Welcome back to the Mobalytics 9.16 Update and Q&A video. I'm your challenger coach, Adam Moriarty-Isles, here to take you through all the changes and questions you had. As a disclaimer, I'd like to mention that we only update the normal list as of right now, as the high elo one wouldn't really have a big enough dataset to make an update worthwhile at this point in time. So without any more delays, let's jump right into the update. For our top lane S-tier roster, we got our old school picks like Garen, Urgot, Yorick, and Illaoi, while we also got some new faces in Singed the Poison Surfer, Malphite the Rock Guy, and Nasus the Dog God. Seems like Malphite, Shen, and Nasus are benefiting from the increased amount of melee bruisers in the game and the smaller amount of ranged AP champions that would previously bully them in lane. Malphite went up by around 3% win rate since 9.14, Shen went up by 2% since the last patch, moving him to A tier, and Nasus went up by 1% since patch 9.12, which was back when we initially dropped him from S tier. Looks like we actually got some viable tanks in the meta, which I guess some people are happy about. Singed, to the surprise of many, has reached S tier. This might be slightly confusing since the last set of buffs he received weren't that strong and really only buffed his late game. The reason he moved up is actually a combination of consistent small buffs, having strong meta matchups into popular champions like Riven, Irelia, Illaoi. That matchup's really funny, by the way, because Tentacle Woman can't ult or use W properly while grounded, so Singed literally runs circles around her laughing as she is forced to watch, unable to do anything. Lastly, it's also the shift in itemization where people are building him more AP oriented instead of tank, which is much better for carrying solo queue games. He's even got a lot of good keystone options like Airy, Dark Harvest, Aftershock, or my personal favorite Conqueror, which needs you to auto a bit to proc it, so only extremely talented Singed players should even attempt this option. We also got Nico moving to the graveyard because she isn't much of a lane bully anymore, and if she runs into stuff like Mundo, she just gets run over. Riven will be joining her in the Shadow Realm for the normal list. She's doing just awful across the board in every elo bracket after the nerfs last patch to her Q. Is this a situation like when her E was nerfed and it took a couple of weeks for Riven mains to readjust and climb back up? Maybe, but for now she isn't a strong recommendation for people to play as she has around a 47% win rate for the normal list. It's likely just better to watch Riven streamers like Adrian figure out how to make her work again. Let him do all the work and research for you. Work smart, not hard. Unfortunately, I'm also a man of my word. On the last video I mentioned if I guessed Riven's win rate drop wrong, I would actually have to first time play her on stream, so I will be following through with that at 1 PST PM on Wednesday, so feel free to catch that stream. In the jungle, the mighty jungle, our S tier roster of Vi, Amumu, Volibear, Master Yi, Jax, and Nunu sleep tonight because it's been the same for a while now. We do have some changes in A tier though, with Echo doing extremely well, moving up from B tier. We had initially predicted him to become a meta jungler due to him increasing in popularity combined with some of the buffs to his late game and all-in potential from last patch. But he's doing even better than we initially thought, jumping up by around 1.5% win rate to 53 and a 1.5% play rate overall. With the nerfs to Silas clear, he pretty much replaces him as the go-to bruiser AP option, able to do very well in skirmishes, invade situations, and has one of the better late game carry potentials for a jungler. Seeing Echo in the jungle is a warm welcome, as I feel like it suits him better to be in the jungle than in mid lane. But if Riot doesn't condone him as a jungler and nerfs him just like they did with Silas, I can be thankful that he isn't viable as a tank top laner anymore because those were dark times. Dark times when assassin players were building full tank and killing everyone. Nocturne also moves up to A tier after his set of buffs came through. He's one of my favorite junglers to play, so while I was doing my research for this video and checking out some stats, I saw him go up by around 3% win rate for the normal list. Being a Nocturne player, I immediately stopped working on the script, threw my cat a toy so she would stop laying on my keyboard, and queued up for jungle and solo queue so I could test it out. I got autofilled to ADC and lost, but the next game I did get jungle and I can confirm how great his new clear is. Not only that, but with how his W works, since it doubles the bonus attack speed whenever he procs the spell shield, if he ever procs that in a duel at level 3, almost no jungler is going to beat him 1v1, and it allows him to invade and have more aggressive options in the early game. I highly recommend for people to pick him up again. As for the rest of the list, we got a bunch of champs moving down, including Warwick, Trundle, and Taliyah due to matchup issues. For example, Trundle is not being used as a counterpick to Sejuani anymore because Sejuani is terrible and people don't play her, so he doesn't get to play that matchup as often. You might be wondering where's Pantheon, or maybe you didn't watch this portion of the video and typed it in the comment section already anyways. He's currently one of the worst junglers in the game with around a 42% win rate and a massive 9% play rate. He's pretty much a catfish at this point. Looks good in picks and splash arts, but then when you see him in person on your team, you're like, wait, he doesn't even do anything. Ults in like a huge badass in Chad, does 0 damage, huge letdown. But we do have some hope. He's getting some buffs next patch, he got a hotfix to his stun, making it connect more often, and we got some help from Flaress' jungle pathing guide for Pantheon in the description below to maybe make you reach 50% win rate. For the mid lane S-tier roster, we have Malzahar, Vel'Koz, Ahri, Fizz, Swain, and Diana. Diana arrives in S-tier due to her strong matchups into popular mid laners like LeBlanc, Yasuo, Zed, and Katarina, while Morgana moves down to A tier as she was borderline S last patch anyways, and we feel she doesn't have what it takes to take over games as consistently as the other S-tier champions. Yasuo himself moves to A tier in the mid lane. He's got a lot of nice meta matchups like into Ahri or Twisted Fate, but the most important thing is how strong his synergy is with some of the best champions from other roles like Janna, Pyke, and Malphite. Not only that, but because Riot wants higher viewership for Worlds, he's receiving a buff next patch despite being really good in solo queue and competitive play at the moment. I could also be wrong, and Riot's just trying to help G2 win Worlds since they're probably gonna 5-man flex Yasuo. You guys know I'm right too. Mickey X probably got a clean Yasuo support since he used to main mid lane. Speaking of champs moving to A tier, Moneyman Pyke is now on our tier list. His pick rate might be low at 0.7, but he's got an insane 55% win rate across all brackets. You might be thinking, but how's that possible? He can't even farm or push waves anymore. You're right, he can't, but he doesn't need to since his ult is giving him so much gold, he doesn't actually need to kill minions. For normal champions, your main source of income are minions, and then you get some bonus gold from kills, but for Pyke, his main source of income is kills, and his bonus source of income is also looking for more kills in other lanes. Minions don't even exist to him, making him a much bigger threat than before because now he's gonna spam roam even more often because he's not worried about missing minions because he knows if he just ults once in one good team fight and gets like 2-3 kills, he's at the top of the gold charts. It's so silly. Aurelion, Sol, LeBlanc, and Talon moved to the Shadow Realm due to being champions that take too much effort to make work at lower levels of play while also requiring a large time investment for little gain in terms of LP. And you might not even have fun learning them during that period of time because they suck when behind, unlike Yasuo who is always fun even at 0-10. Down in the bot lane, our S-tier roster will be Jhin, Jinx, and Draven. Draven comes back to S-tier due to the more aggressive early game style we see in the meta. He also happens to synergize well with both enchanters like Janna Nami or kill supports like Pyke, Leona, and Rakan, allowing him to more consistently snowball right now. Pyke Draven is also one of the scariest bot lanes to go against on 9.16 because if you screw up and die once, it's over for you in lane. They just cash in way too much gold for you to come back. Thankfully, it's not an unbeatable combo because both those champions have a habit of throwing, but still, it's incredibly strong, so be careful. In the last video, I also said I would try out some of the off-meta combos that were suggested in the chat, and the one I liked the most was actually the Irelia Sejuani combo as the all-in potential is crazy good, so congrats to Franzi for that one. The other off-meta combo I want to let people know about is Zilean plus melee support champion. The idea behind this one is Zilean speeds up the melee champion Panth, Leona, Xin Zhao for example, so they can easily get into range to land CC in situations they normally would have a little bit of trouble in. Then once it lands, it's a free double bomb for massive, easy to execute burst damage. It's honestly incredibly hard to deal with, and like the Taric version, can easily dive towers thanks to the revive from Zilean. You can also do a cheese where you hide in a brush and use Zilean's passive to help someone hit level 6 really quickly, and then all in immediately. Try this combo out, and tell me in the comment section below which Zilean plus all-in melee champion works the best for you, so I can steal it. And for the support S tier roster, we have Zyra, Brand, Soraka, Janna, Nami, and Pyke. Hey Adam Moriarty Isles, Challenger Coach, do you have any changes to the support list this time around? Nope, none. So instead, let's talk about how badly Yuumi is doing. As of right now, Yuumi's win rate is 47.79% with an 8% play rate, which is down from 9.15, where she had a 47.14% win rate and a 9.9% play rate. Now, last video I said if you guessed Yuumi's win rate right in the comment section that I would actually give you a shout out, so here it is. We got Dominic Medjai, Shadow, Salty Frosty, Lewis Nato, Chad Wolf, C-Mock, Snowden Live, Deong Mac, Nicholas Horenson, Schaffler, The Wolf, and Adam Miles. That's right, I'm gonna give myself a shout out because I got it right too. As for how Yuumi's doing overall, she's doing okay at super high elo at the moment, but for the average player, she's just awful and a dodge-worthy champion once again. Something that seems dodge-worthy though, but isn't, is Swain support, alright? I know I've been talking about it for a while now, but I think it's good, and I fully condone it as a strong carry mage support that can even work at higher levels. Moving into the Q&A portion, we got Zachy Bear from YouTube who says, I feel like I'm going crazy. I keep wanting to take Smite Spellbook on Thresh support, but I haven't had the guts to take it into my ranked games, but I keep winning in norms. Having met a lot of crazy people over the years in solo queue, I feel like I'm personally qualified to tell you that you're not completely crazy yet. There is some precedent here, with melee supports taking Spellbook like Braum and Tahm Kench, as it's quite useful on supports to be able to adapt and have so many summoner spell options when roaming. Now, since you're starting with Smite, you can even go for some cheesy buff steals or even Baron steals, and I'm gonna tell you, no jungler has the mental fortitude to come back from a game where a support player outsmites them. It's pretty much a free win. They're gonna GG out, mental boom, or the enemy team's gonna flame them so much the same thing will happen anyways. There is a major difference between Tahm Kench and Braum taking Spellbook and Thresh, and that's that those champions have defensive tools where they don't actually need something like Guardian or Aftershock to keep them alive in the early game, while Thresh definitely does. He has some of the worst base stats in the early game because he's supposed to stack up souls and has no real way to keep himself alive. But Adam, you're being too harsh on Thresh. He has a shield to protect himself in the early game. Yeah, but it's terrible and has 60 base damage, so I don't count that. Thresh, unlike Tahm Kench and Braum, is also looking to engage or initiate kills way more often during the laning phase, so having the extra durability from Aftershock or Guardian suits him more. In conclusion, Spellbook isn't going to be bad on him, it's just worse than the current meta options because of how Thresh wants to play. Our second question comes from Mizuki Gaming, who asks, could Irelia and Taric bot lane work? The surprise stun with Irelia's dash into Taric's E could be very powerful, and then it's super easy for Irelia to reset. And maybe double Targons too? Yep, this combo should be fine. Easy double stun, tower dive potential, and I would try double Targons for it personally. In general, I like these kind of melee all-in combos with Taric, as they can snowball really easily and punish people who are bad at laning. Irelia, Yasuo, Rengar, Echo, Pyke are all able to pair up well with Taric to get easy stun combos into an all-in and are perfect for punishing champions like Jinx who are not able to stop this kind of early aggression. I also highly recommend trying it into supports like Sona or Brand who are known for chain feeding if the laning phase doesn't go well. Brand support players in particular, I feel like don't play with a scoreboard sometimes because no matter how many deaths they have, they always think, if I land my combo, I'll kill them. Then they miss, die, respawn, and do it all over again, and you can take advantage of that mentality since Taric ult will negate Brand's ult for a free kill every time. All you would need to do to make this combo successful is make sure to ban Morgana so her black shield doesn't stuff your engages, and you can look forward to punishing bad laners extremely hard with this combo and making them chain feed over and over again. Our third question comes from Jerbear on Discord, who asked, I want to know why the tier list for high elo suggests Kha'Zix and Rengar. What makes them so good in the right hands? Despite community perception, this comes from the fact that assassin junglers do a lot worse at lower levels of play. This is because of a concept I've talked about before, but I'm going to call it champion trauma. People tend to remember the negatives more than positives, so they remember all the times Alien vs Predator got fed, and not the times they got fed and lost, or didn't get fed and were only useful as a source of heat due to all the flame coming out of them in the chat. Let's be real here, people. Kha'Zix and Rengar one tricks who fall behind are not very pleasant. The reason for this is because those champs are not strong late game unless super fed, don't teamfight well unless super fed, and they're terrible from behind to begin with, so the assassin jungler player would rather go next than be a team player and play it out from behind because it's going to be boring for them. You can kind of see now why they don't work as well lower levels of play. They need to snowball reliably on champs who aren't amazing pre-6 and then close out the game quickly before it gets to late game and people group up to teamfight because they can't get his picks easily in those situations. The window of power that those two champions have is actually quite small, but in high elo that window is strong enough and long enough that the Rengar player and Kha'Zix player can snowball the game and end it before things go to late game. In lower levels where the average game time is longer, that just doesn't happen as often. Our next question comes from Maxito on Instagram, who asked, why is Urgot in the meta? The Urgot one is a champion that wins lane versus a lot of popular melee champions such as Garen, Darius, Pantheon, etc. Is that it? Is that all he's good for? Yep, pretty much, but it's enough. He so consistently wins lane versus melee champions that he becomes a reliable source for pressure in most of his games. Not only that, but he's tanky enough and easy enough to execute that he can often 1v2 ganks and run over teamfights with the lead if the enemy team doesn't have a lot of ranged champions, which is common in this meta. Think of him like a ranged Alawi in terms of his strengths and why he's meta, but without the tentacles. Urgot was picked in competitive during his prime for these same reasons, consistently won lane and had decent teamfighting and was decently tanky. So expect him to stay top tier on the normal list for a pretty long time because the only thing that matters in top lane is, yeah, if you won lane or not, because if you didn't, you're not going to impact the game very much. And our last question comes from someone I don't want to butcher your name, so I'll nickname you AS instead, on Facebook, who asked what makes Vel'Koz S-tier on the regular list but B tier in the high-low one. To figure this out, let's list his strengths. Easy safe laning phase due to how well he can push and farm, strong poke, very good burst, strong siege, teamfight, and scales well. Pretty standard for an artillery mage, but he has some weaknesses. Skill shot reliant, poor roaming, and can be picked off or flanked easily. At lower levels, the pace of the game plays well into his strengths, as most players aren't proactive enough to beat Vel'Koz in lane. Then, he just outplays them in the NA ARAM style of grouping up as 5 and taking a stroll down mid lane, which is very common at that level of play. At high levels though, the mid meta is all about high mobility proactive assassins and heavy ganking junglers, so Vel'Koz normally just gets camped and struggles to deal with this level of early game aggression. He can still do pretty well in certain matchups like versus Orianna or Azir for example, but these matchups don't appear as often in solo queue. He normally just ends up going up against Fizz J4 and getting dove at the tier 2 tower. Sometimes it would be nice if you had a hero to counter gank these type of plays, but like most of you, my hero is doing Gromp instead of counter ganking. It's always Gromp. This is why Vel'Koz isn't going to be a consistent pick in high-low during this meta because he needs people to protect his early game. Thanks for watching our tier list update and Q&A video for patch 9.16. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below or go to our Discord server in the link provided where you can ping me in our tier list discussion channel. Don't forget to try out Mobalytics today at mobalytics.gg and I'll see you summoners out on the Rift.